There we go. I'll start.
Yes.
Welcome to the Methodist Church of New Zealand webinar series. This webinar is going to cover asbestos and the church building and loan fund. We're recording this webinar and the relevant info will be found on the website. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see there is a Q button, a QA button. I think we'll go to the next one. And
Keep talking.
Sorry. So the QA button at the bottom of the screen, you'll find if you have any questions, we will post the questions as you think of them, and we'll answer them as we go tonight, because we don't have Greer with us tonight to field the questions for us or organise the questions. And as I said, we will answer them as we go, unless we will be answering them as we speak. Just a bit of a background on what we do and how we've come to this point. Trudy Downs, sitting next to me, is our health and safety caretaker. She's been with the Methodist Church for 3.5 years, and before that she managed a small painting and decorating company undertaking repairs in earthquake and asbestos riddled Christchurch homes.
And Wendy is our main person who looks after property and insurance for the church. She's been doing that role for over 5 years, and she's been involved with property investments both within New Zealand and overseas. And if you'll bear with me just a moment, I'm trying to get the PowerPoint presentation working, and I'm all thumbs tonight.
Up left. What happens if you go there, number 2?
Nothing, it's not set up.
We're very sorry about this. We've tried it out before and it worked. But it was working on my computer.
It was.
So it won't work out on the left side. Well, I might make a start. As I know, a lot of people might be thinking about dinner. So I want to talk to cover the church building and loan fund. The church building and loan fund is funded from the property sales or church property sales, and the proceeds from those sales go into the CBNL. And the question that's asked when the account for the proceeds from the sale is opened is, will the property be replaced? And the answer is obviously yes or no. So in the first instance, we will cover yes. So if the answer is yes, then 100% from the proceeds from the sale of the property, less expenses, will go into CBNL, and that will be used for capital works. So that it will be used for other projects relating to property. And parishes can withdraw from the CBNL account for projects over $50,000, and if the project is over $50,000, then that will require Synod and MCPC approval. And if that is the case, then you send the invoices through to me for payment. If the answer to the question, will the property be replaced, is no, then 15% of the sale or proceeds from the sale after expenses will go into the development fund ministries. And it's it will be a 50-50 split into the deposit into the ministry or property development funds from that 15% portion of the proceeds from the sale. Now, the Ministry Development Fund is used by Ministry, and it's managed by the Mission Resourcing. The Property Development Fund is used for property grants up to $50,000, and those grants are approved by MCPC through your Synod. So the Synod make the recommendation to MCPC that for a property development grant, And those grants are for repairs, maintenance projects, and towards the sale and purchase of property. That may be just the expenses surrounding purchase of a property. So where the property is not to be replaced, 85% is left, that is deposited into the CBNL account, and that's to cover capital works for projects, maintenance, repairs, and all projects over $50,000 will require MCPC and Synod approval. And once again, for all projects, you send invoices through to me for payment from the CBNL fund. Now, within the fund, there is the ability to draw down 80% of the interest from those funds. And applications for the 80% drawdown of interest are directly to me, and they go through to the fund administrator that administers the church building and loan fund, and that is paid out quarterly. So that covers what I want to cover regarding the process, the reason this church building and loan fund accounts exist, what they can be used for, and how that money is dispersed and utilised, and also whether or not sorry, I'm looking at the questions now. Can see the PowerPoint now. Thank you very much. Is this a different current requirement to projects for over $25,000 requiring Synod and MCPC approval? So last year, MCPC decided that the cap for projects was going to be was changed to $50,000 plus GST. So all projects over $50,000 require Synod and MCPC approval. So that was moved from $25,000 to $50,000. The next question is, if funds in the CBL came from a specific church within a parish, does it have to be spent on the same church, or can it be spent on another church in the same parish? That's actually a very good question. And sometimes we have a parish that applies for 2 different churches for a church building and loan fund because they don't have the funds required to carry out maintenance or repairs on each of those churches. So they will consider an application for each church. The parish could apply and have $50,000 approved that could be shared between churches within a parish. It doesn't specifically mean that it has to be spent on that one church, but the limit is $50,000, and applications are generally considered every 2 years.
I've got a question, Wendy. You said that the interest drawdown for 80% of the interest, does it have to be spent on buildings, on property?
No, it doesn't. That's the one time that anything that comes from a CBNL account that doesn't have to be used on property. It can be used for the day-to-day running of the church, but that's only the interest, and it's only 80% of the interest on the funds available in that account for that parish.
And what happens with the other 20% that stays in the fund for the entity, for the parish?
Yes, and that's to help address inflation, and so the funds still have a reasonable buying power, regardless of how long they are left in the fund before they're used, because sometimes a plan for a new property can take a number of years, as you know.
Yes, that's excellent. If we have no further questions, I'll move on to asbestos management. Always a delight. While it's legislation that we need to look after asbestos and how we manage asbestos is regulated, there's some basic things that we need to know, that the buildings between 1920 and 2000 if they've been touched in any manner or form, such as being built or renovated or maintained, they're highly likely to contain asbestos. And that building stock of that era is what we target with our asbestos management planning. The core thing behind this is that asbestos kills, and it's not fast. It may take 30 to 40 years, but that's the reason why we try and manage asbestos. Asbestos is a natural occurring product. It's closely related to pounamu, to greenstone. So if you mine for greenstone, the likelihood is that you'll find asbestos, natural occurring asbestos nearby as well. This is our current system that we're using. That the starting point is with an asbestos management plan, and then whenever you want to make changes to your property, changes being renovations, demolition, or even maintenance, that you need to survey the area that you're going to carry out work to, so that over time you'll do a number of surveys until such point in time as you've surveyed the entire building, cleared out the asbestos, and you're asbestos free. That's just marvellous. So we start with an asbestos management plan. Everybody needs one. In January 2020, so January last year, I did send out a preliminary filled-in asbestos management plan to every building. And the premise of this plan that I sent out is based on don't know, don't touch. If you don't know where asbestos is or is not, you do not touch that area until you find out. So that's shifting from asbestos management plan through to the demolition refurbishment survey. Information that we gather along this journey needs to be shared with people. If you've got people that will come in and carry out works to your building, such as contractors, even your emergency first responders need to be informed. After a fire, for example, if they're going to investigate in the rubble, they need to be informed whether or not there is asbestos in that rubble so that they can take steps to keep themselves safe. If you've got tenants in the building, they need to know, so that there was a case in the UK, I think it was, where teachers were putting pin boards into pins into asbestos, using it as an asbestos pin board, and they got ill from that. So even your tenants, if all they're doing is pushing pins in and out of the walls, they need to know about the asbestos status of your building as well. So the asbestos management plan, that the version that's on your screen now, covers that off. One of the things you need to list in that plan is who the building users are, that you need to tell them about the asbestos status of the building as well. So we've got our asbestos management plan in place, and now we're going to do demolition, refurbishment or maintenance to various areas of the building until such point in time as we've covered off everywhere in the building and it's tending towards safe. While the asbestos management plan that I showed was the church's version, it's free. Once you get into the surveying state of building works, you need to hire a qualified asbestos surveyor to undertake this. It's specialist work, and your friendly builder generally is not qualified to do so. And the reason for that is asbestos is tiny. With this, I love this picture here because, you know, those grains of rice look huge. A hair looks like I've drawn that in with a pen, but this piece here is over 20,000 fibres of asbestos. If you blow it up to 2,000 times magnification, what you're looking at here are the barbs on the asbestos, and that's what gets caught in your lungs. So if Bob the builder can work out, if he's got 2,000 times magnification in his eyes, that he can pick up what's asbestos and what's not, then by all means get him to do your surveys, but the likelihood is he can't. And so qualified surveyors know where to look to take the samples, to send it into a lab, and they use their magnifying capabilities to work out and count up how much asbestos is in the sample. That's why professionals are essential. So these are the sorts of things that your friendly builder may recognise. These are well-known forms of asbestos. Super 8 is the big, fat, wide corrugated roofing material that you'll see. You'll notice that it's got that slight look of Hardy's board or the cementous boards. That's quite easy to recognise as asbestos. Some of the Hardy's board on the back side of it has got this beehive pattern on it. The cementous board that's got that pattern on the back of it is asbestos. Dichromatic roofing is a problem. The coating on this is asbestos, and once it gets old, you can see it start wearing off. All of the asbestos particles will fall off the roof into your gutters, and if your water goes to ground outside your building, you've now got contaminated ground as well. Old style electrical fittings, the fuses in here, or if they've got white rope looking insulation in them, that's asbestos. So they use asbestos in electrical because of its fire retardant properties. And even these sorts of toilet fittings where it's a man-made product, and the age of these is normally between the 1940s, 1970s. It's got asbestos in it. It's probably one of the safer forms of asbestos because it's the way it's encapsulated in the moulding process, but it's still asbestos. It is everywhere. And that's why I'm saying when you get to the survey stage of managing your buildings, you need to get experts in to do it. Generally, your builders know a lot, but possibly not enough. So once you end up with your building projects done along the way, for each stage you need to get a clearance certificate once you've removed your asbestos. And once every single area is cleared, then you've got an asbestos-free building. Part of trying to work out where has been done or not been done, it comes down to your record keeping, so that over time, what will happen is you'll check out various areas through your building, they all get their clearance certificate, and then your building's clear. As you go through this process, you should be sending copies through to the connectional office attached to your MCPC applications, or if you've got work that's carried out below that $50,000 cap, send through your asbestos records anyway. So even if your work's below that $50,000 cap, you should be doing asbestos surveys for that work. And that's really it about asbestos management. So the asbestos management plans should be done now. There's no reason to delay. Get them in now and make sure that people aren't disrupting asbestos. The asbestos demolition and refurbishment surveys, they can be done when you're planning work. They don't need to be part of the actual works. You can do the demolition and refurbishment surveys early and then use the results from the survey as a planning tool for your main project. And the updated asbestos policy of bricks and mortar has got a section on how to incorporate asbestos demolition and refurbishment surveys into your project plan. And that's us, thank you. There's no further questions on asbestos.
So I'd like to thank you, everybody, for attending this evening. We will be holding further monthly webinars. The next one will be on the 7th of September, topics being creating an emergency response plan, including wall charts, fire emergency New Zealand or FENS approval, and practice drills. So Trudy will be covering that, and I'll be covering buying and selling property. Any feedback or suggestions, from this evening's webinar or any previous webinars or future webinars will be gratefully received. So please send those directly by email to Trudy and myself. Once again, thank you for your time and interest in attending. A recording will be made available shortly on the website, along with useful references and supporting material, such as links to other sites. Thank you.
I've got one last question just come in.
So one last question on CBNL. Could we apply to use funds in a CBNL fund and development fund for the same project? The answer is yes. So the MCPC will always ask you to use your current funding first before you apply for a property development fund or grant. But if you had a shortfall in the CBNL fund and you're wanting to complete a project, or you did require those funds to bring the funds up to the cost of the project, you could apply for development fund and use of the funds in CBNL at the same time. So thank you once again, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Ka kite.